Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of our podcast. We're welcoming John Horsfield back for round two. John, welcome back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm not sure why you invited me back on the podcast, but I definitely appreciate that. And I feel honored to be the second guest. So that's a big move. There's a lot of pressure on me right now. I didn't know that till just before the podcast. So we'll try to stay on target this time. I think last time was great, but I was all over the map. We're talking about anarchy and
Anarchy Burger, hold the government, a little vandal stuff going on there. We have a list of stuff to go through, so we're trying to keep it fine tuned for our audience because I get carried away too.
yeah.
As everyone knows, me and John are both in the cybersecurity field. We do different things in that field. And what we're trying to do and accomplish is kind of just make this information more accessible and understandable for people and have these conversations on a more deeper level so people get and understand and we can clarify things for them. So today we're going to start with fishing. Why fishing? What the hell is fishing? Did I go fishing with my friends? Throw some salmon on the burner, cook it? That kind of fishing?
Well, you could probably do that while you're fishing, eat salmon. And I'm sure like hackers do that sort of stuff all the time. But fishing is let's see. Okay, what you'll do is you'll take the bait of different forms. There's a couple different types, right? The most common is email phishing, and that's like classical phishing. And so yeah, you'll take like a malicious link or a file that's attached to the email, and you'll just blast people with these emails, hoping that they'll go to that link that contains some sort of malicious website that they'll get somebody to click on, maybe enter their credentials, which is called credential harvesting. Studying from my Security Plus. And there's a couple others, which text messaging, oddly enough, is called smishing because it's SMS phishing.
Yeah.
Same concept. They'll have a bogus link attached in there, and then from there you'll click it. It'll take you to some malicious website or have you download something. So, it's interesting because phishing, according to Deloitte and Touche, or just Deloitte now, I forget, they estimate that upwards of 90% of cyber attacks involve phishing. So it is very important. Yeah, no, I got phished the other day. I was going to ask you, when was the last time you got phished, and how often does it happen?
I get fished so much in my lifetime that I'm starting to think that I'm doing dating wrong. Starting to think I need to rethink that whole thing. But they get really deep and like very highly skilled in how they do these phishing emails now. They'll like spoof your domain, and if you don't have your DMARC or SPF records in place, it'll be easy to get past your domain security. They'll like make it look like it came from your boss, like your boss needs $20 million transferred now, and they actually put all the email signature looking really accurate. And they're like, "Hey, Justin, yeah, can you send us that money right away, please?" I'm like, "Oh, sure. Let me just click on this link. That I'm so busy in work, I can't pay attention to the details right now."
Yep.
But
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
they're trying.
So that's one of the ways that they get people to click on stuff, is sort of through knowing how busy people are.
Yeah.
Right. And the other tactic that they use is sort of like being an authority. Like the CFO will email somebody in accounting or something that's low level, and he's like, I need this right away, that sort of stuff. And then it gets them to, yeah, well, what is it? And so what sort of advice do you have for to protect organizations against phishing? You mentioned DMARC, and what's the other one? DKIM?
Like SP,
SPF. SPF?
SPF, and DKM.
DKM.
Yeah, so those are actually things you need to have set up on your DNS and your domain and for email specifically to help mitigate spam and phishing email attacks or spoofing your domain. For example, like say ITeeCMD is my company. They may say LTEECMD, but make the L look like the I. And if you're not paying attention, then they'll be easy to get past that. but that's those 3 records are set up to help mitigate that, especially Microsoft has a lot of things now that they're really pushing towards to help really mitigate that for people, but you have to have a good software and IT team to implement that for you. And you can try it yourself. I mean, it's, not that hard, but
Yeah.
also there comes we really need to have people learn and understand the value of working with other, like, managed service providers or companies that offer phishing simulations or helping them recognize what those emails are. And I just had a conversation with a company where they're saying that they have a simulation and they've seen better outcome with the simulation instead of just sending phishing emails and like freaking people out saying, oh my God, you're going to get in trouble. And that doesn't change their behavior. But the simulator actually allows them to train them, see the things that they're looking out for, walk through those things. And then they're like, oh, now I understand. Like, and that actually changes the behavior, it doesn't freak them out. So just having a good training program.
Yep. That was the other thing I was thinking. And that's what I was going for too, really, is the training. I think you hit the nail on the head with that too. The weakest link oftentimes is a person, and they might use different vectors, but usually a person's involved in at least one of those steps. I think as far as the simulation goes, I think that's extremely useful. But the thing that you mentioned, which is interesting, that you had mentioned how it's important to not make it feel like people are in trouble,
Yeah.
right? That's so important. That's so important because typically what will happen is in human nature is if you have that sort of punishment mindset, people will be afraid to report something. Oh, I clicked that link. Oh, Jesus, what do I do? You report it to IT immediately. And what they do is that, it should fall on their shoulders, but like their training was obviously not good enough. I think people have to put a good effort forth and, take the training seriously. But, ultimately that rests on the shoulders of IT, and they shouldn't have a single point of failure like that either. But that's a different discussion. But the positive reinforcement, that's the best way and easiest way of modifying people's behavior, period. Your kids, your spouse, you, me, positive reinforcement.
Yes.
And those simulators, that's, I never heard of it specifically, called a simulator. I'm wondering if, like Go Fish would count as a simulator. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, but the guy was talking to him. He's going to come on the podcast soon. That's what they do. They run simulators to help change behavior. Because we were talking about that, how, like, for example, one of the companies I work with, that they freak out. And they're like, oh my God, I'm getting in trouble, like you said. I'm like, it's okay. I kind of walk them through to understand that this happened. It's good to report it to me. Now we just remember for next time. No need to freak out about it. This is just a test of the emergency broadcast
Yes.
system. This is only a test.
Look, that joke's gonna like not land, I think, pretty soon because right, like TV's almost gone. And
Old man
yeah,
talking about
who even knows that anymore? Yeah, those
this old
boomers.
geezer. What do you mean back
Is
in my day, boy?
is that code? What are they speaking? So I was looking, and Go Fish is a simulator. So
Okay.
pretty cool tool. And I don't know how you want to like do this or whatever. Maybe I could provide links or whatever for stuff we kind of talk about. It
You
might be
can do that.
useful
Add some links
for
in the show
folks.
notes.
Yeah, it's an open source phishing framework that is relatively easy to set up. I think a non-technical person will probably get into some trouble, but I had a little difficulty. I ended up getting it working, but I had it working on a server running Linux. I think using Windows or something, it would be a lot easier to use, but I had to do the hard-headed way and get it running in Linux. But at any rate, even if it's not for non-technical people, the technical people I think would enjoy it. They might even have heard about it. I think it's relatively popular, and it's pretty much everything soup to nuts that you need to just run a phishing campaign. So
Nice.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say
definitely.
if you don't have it, talk to your IT guy. Maybe he can help you set it up, providing they're nice and they're not yelling and screaming and treating you like crap. Because some of these
Yes.
IT guys out there, let me tell you, they get impatient, they get frustrated, they don't have time for that. It's like we're human beings, they forget, and they just take the time to help train and show people. It really goes further.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, as far as phishing goes, do you know of any other ways of kind of protecting or mitigating the damage that's done with phishing?
You have to have the right controls in place. You need to have IT and cybersecurity because there is a difference. One's proactive, one's reactive. But you have to have things, for example, we use guards, and guards helps track emails, security mailboxes, anything that may be out to the public or open. So if something was clicked, it may go straight to junk. It won't be necessarily affect the system. But you need to have things in place that say if this system does get infected, they do click the link and something does happen, it is actually able to be segmented from the network right away. So you need to have certain protocols in place so when it does happen. But like we said, the training is the most important thing you can do. Like it's everyone's responsibility, not just Tom, Mary, or the CEOs. Everyone in the company, we all have a responsibility to be trained well. I think that's what people are kind of forgetting. They think, oh, it's an IT problem, but no, it's not. It's everyone.
Yeah. And,
But yeah,
and it's not an IT problem anymore, right?
mm,
It's a everybody problem. Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't think, IT, I mean, maybe at some point, I'm not sure if it ever happened in my life. Maybe they, were the ones to really shoulder the majority of that burden, but it doesn't work. There's too many vectors, it's too much user error. Everybody needs to be trained. And with the increase in these sort of automated attacks happening, we're going to see an increase in, in attacks in general, and those, single points of failures, and folks that are relying on just having, the right security things in place, pieces in place, but not training folks. Hackers will find a way in, and they're going to find a way in, typically using a person. So yeah, training. It's it's
Yeah,
everybody's
and
burden.
like you said, it's not just one thing. It's the training, it's the network segmentation, it's the
Yep,
understanding the
that's so
IT,
important.
cybersecurity, using VLAN. Well, that's the same thing. VLANs. All these things go into play. Having all this stuff together, it actually protects the company. And I've talked to so many different CEOs, and they really lack the understanding of what needs to be done. They're still just doing IT and being reactive.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too about the whole stance, right? Proactive versus reactive, and I think at this point too, it's if it's not already obvious, it will be obvious pretty soon to more people because they're going to feel the sting of getting attacked, and so I think it's unfortunate, but that's when they'll typically be like, okay, let's take this serious now. It's so much emphasis is put on like ROI when people are making purchases, and this is not an ROI thing. It's sort of like your health, right? Your health is not I mean, there is a ROI, but it it's like intangible and almost ephemeral.
You're going to lose money if you get more, if you get attacked. We don't do this. From regulation standpoint, it's phenomenal.
I I think no, I think that's important, and I think what people need to start doing is looking at things and assigning risk. And no one has an infinite budget, right? But you should at least be making these. And with that said, like you can have an infinite budget with cybersecurity, just keep adding on things, keep doing things, and whatever else. And that's not what we're suggesting. But what we're suggesting is people start looking at things from a risk perspective, start assigning risk, know where your holes are, and at least have a battle plan to plug them when you have the budget. And certain things are going to be higher up on that hierarchy, but we
Gap
need to start
analysis.
making educated decision when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, you got to do those gap analysis and risk assessments. Some other stuff that is very key to not just phishing, but having multi factor authentication installed. That's something people
Yes.
really forget about because so many companies, we were talking earlier, so many companies are still using Yahoo and Gmail, and these are not business email systems. These are not, you have to have a business email system that are required to be covered by your cyber insurance and to protect your company. They have certain things in place to help mitigate this, help track things, help filter out certain bad actors and spam, etc. So using Yahoo, using Gmail, even with MFA, is still high risk. But
Yeah.
MFA in the business email system, such as Microsoft or so I can't say it, Google
DuckDuckGo,
Workspace. I feel like heartburn coming up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who uses Google anymore?
Oh God, that was,
You know? Yeah. I'm very surprised you actually ever got it out, right? I mean, it's It's so funny the kind of about face that Google, did, right? They position themselves almost like we're the anti-Apple. And they even had this like thing in their corporate headquarters which said like "Do no evil." They took that down a couple years ago. I wonder if they have like in like Tide written on the wall so you can't see. Let's put the black light on that says like "Do more evil." It's like I knew it, but
Dang.
you know yeah, I don't give them my data. I have them for years. I switched to DuckDuckGo, and like, I mean, the results are comparable. I mean,
They're
I don't
very
notice any
different.
difference really.
They are very
They are,
different, but
but
if
they're
you're still
comparable to
used to
me.
Google, that's gonna be different for sure.
Yeah, and I get the information I need, trained to, and maybe I'm getting a different set, but like maybe instead of like, I don't know, instead of Deloitte coming up at the top, just using this as an example, maybe some other auditing firm might come up, and I'm fine with that. The data's real. You got to check it and always verify, but yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But getting back to that, right? The cyber insurance, that's important. I think a lot of these healthcare groups, they don't have it because typically in the past too, and I believe it's still that way now, in order to be HIPAA compliant, and if you're a healthcare provider, you don't need cybersecurity insurance right now, believe it or not. And if you use software right now, according to the rules of HIPAA, as long as your software vendors have BAAs, you're good. But that's changing.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
there's
new
rule
rules
changes
coming
coming down.
down from the HHS, and they're
Yeah,
really managed service providers and healthcare providers accountable more. So a lot of the stuff they have to really go into effect. I'm excited for it because
me
a
too.
lot of managed service providers, they know IT, but they don't know cybersecurity. But they're kind of like dabbling with it. But like it's always security's always been the main role. I mean, in my life at least, and it should be for anyone healthcare or not. Security should always be something that's kind of on top of the books there, like to be paying attention to. Why would you risk your business for something you could have hired someone for way cheaper to help you implement? That's a high risk.
It is, and they just don't see it that way. But I think it's going to take a little education on our part about why it's important. But I think once word gets out of people getting stung a little bit more, unfortunately, then I think they'll take it a lot more seriously. We're working with a couple schools where that happened. So for a long time, they were like schools were not even being attacked, and now we're seeing that happen. And now we're having conversation with these other schools that because school X got attacked, they're like, right around the corner. And they're like, whoa, hey, yeah, let's talk
Take a
turkey.
step back and reassess our game plan.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people take it personally almost like IT folks. I think they almost have this,
Ew.
they feel the need to almost be like omniscient. And it's like you can't be. Don't take it personally. We're gonna find vulnerabilities and ways in. We're just gonna. There's nothing that's impenetrable. Nothing.
100%.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. So, don't take it personal. This is just to learn. This is going to empower you. So let's just get this party started,
That's why
you know?
I hate when there's a lot of vendors out there like, we're going to keep you secure. We got you covered. You don't have to worry. 100%. You're protected. And like you said, nothing is 100% impenetrable or protected. You can't guarantee you're going to be protected. You can have a higher level of protection that's like, okay, it's going to help you. But it's like you have car insurance. You're driving a car. You have insurance, but that's when you're going to not die in a car accident. It's kind of like you have to understand that risk profile that you have there as well.
Absolutely. And you have to, look at what sort of coverages you have too, right? That's important with insurance and it's important with cybersecurity. What's important to you? If you're driving a motorcycle, I probably have that, personal injury protection for myself. They'll pay for hospital bills or anything like that would be way up. But in a car, I probably wouldn't put it as high because, the probability of me getting gravely injured is probably lower. So I might lower that there. But my car is more expensive than my motorcycle. So I'll put the, coverage to, that would pay the reimbursement at a higher rate or whatever with my car. I don't know if that's actually applicable or not, full coverage on my car. But anyway, that actually was a lesson that I learned. I drove a motorcycle years ago. I got into an accident. I had added personal injury protection, but the guy didn't add it for me. He added it for somebody else. I'm like, what? I remember calling up like, hey, yeah, I'm calling to file a claim. It's like, yeah, you have no coverage for yourself. I'm like, well, personal injury protection? But at any rate, get back to the point, right? we need to start looking at it that way.
And that's just what
So,
you just said too, that means you need to start looking at your protections quarterly, yearly, more often than we are, seeing what you have, what you are protected under, make sure you have the right amount of protection and that you're doing the right things to keep that protection.
yep. And I think having, you had mentioned it before, I believe. I don't know if you said it explicitly, but organizations need to have like a multi-layered approach to things,
Yeah.
right? And we have a couple different layers that you can add. Firewalls are important, perhaps VPNs are important, backups, so important, so important.
Wait, you're saying
Well,
I should
VPNs,
back up my information? Really?
yeah,
Why would I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah,
back up my information? It's on a server or it's in Microsoft Cloud. It's safe. What do you mean? It is
yep,
backed up.
yes. So many people think that's true. Yeah. It's like, well, how about when the attacker gets a session cookie from the dark web and they're out there? I've seen them. Plugs
Let's
it into
hope
their
that they don't.
browser, fully authenticated. They have kings to the kingdom. They'll go into your Microsoft OneDrive or SharePoint or whatever else and have a field day.
Lock you out.
So yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. How that's ransomware. What
Yeah.
a diabolically genius idea. You know what I mean? Like lock you out of your own house.
Thought about that. Like,
It is genius. It is simple too.
I'm
When I heard about that, I was like, oof, man, that's a tough one, right?
talking about the key is right there, but you can't decrypt it. But it's right. It's like waving
Nope.
the key in front of you, like neener, neener, neener.
Give me some Bitcoin and yeah, maybe I'll give it back to you. And
They
maybe I
have
won't have a
customer
copy of it.
service you can call. Oh, you didn't get unlocked? Give us a moment. We're gonna double your Bitcoin order actually, and then you can maybe get back in still.
Yeah. They they're really smart about it too. They look at your annual revenue and they know most people will pay something like 10%. I'm not sure what that number is, might be 10%, 20%, whatever of your annual revenue. And so that's just what they ask. They know you're going to pay. Most people will pay.
Well, like what you just mentioned there, that when they get in your system, they'll go through your financials and maybe they'll stay there for a while, or maybe they'll lock your system out, but they're in there. They see how much you're making, and that's how they determine how much they think you can pay. I like how you brought that up. It's a real
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, it is. And, sitting on your system, that's something that's becoming more increasing. And I think the length of time that they sit in our systems in the United States is longer than elsewhere,
6 months to a year or something, isn't it? Maybe longer.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have, scans and use something like SIF Suite as another layer of protection to, look at your entire threat landscape, right? Because sometimes one of the earliest signs that you've been breached is your information being in the dark web.
Ooh. So you
Yeah.
mentioned SIF Suite. Please tell me more about that product. Like what?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So there's a ton of data on the dark web, right? And so we take multiple data streams and we synthesize them together, put them into one, sort of easy to manage and easy to monitor dashboard. And from there, we'll know what's on the dark web. Typically it'll work through using something called like an identifier, such as like an email address or name or social or something else. And you'll plug that identifier into SIF Suite. And from there, that will scan all of the data streams for that identifier. So typically an email address is enough and we'll find, see, this is what would have been useful if I would have had one of our guys on. We could have done this beforehand and maybe we could do this in the
do it
future
again. Hell
is
yeah.
take your email address and we could do a scan for you and show you what's in the dark web. And there's a lot of stuff on there, such as passwords are leaked on there. Session cookies are on there,
Password
like I
one
had
two
mentioned
three
before.
is not a good password.
No way. You should be using password exclamation point
Or
23. Come
I
on,
am
be a pro.
God with love or something. What are you talking about?
Yeah. 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 We're predictable. We like to imagine we have all this free will, and I think we have it to a certain capacity. But, most of the time we run on the default mode network and we're very predictable. Yeah, hackers really taking advantage of that.
Mentioning that too, I'm gonna make people aware that if you have the same password and one account, that's okay. But you have that same password on multiple accounts, That's when hackers will understand that most people only use the same password throughout all their accounts, and they'll get into everything and pretty much ruin your life. It can be
Yeah,
dangerous. Yeah.
absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have multi-factor authentication.
What was that word again, please, for our audiences not listening?
Multi-factor authentication. That's why it's so important to have that. It, and in my eyes, it's a really low bar, not difficult to employ, not difficult to use. It's part of my life now. I've been using it for 15 years. Let's dig into that a little bit. So how would you rank, or, what sort of multi-factor authentication methods do you know?
Well, before I mention that, I do want to say the multi-factor authentications is kind of the bare minimum you should be doing, because there's other things that you should be doing above that. Because of MFA, those tokens and session cookies that creates sometimes can be taken, or those SMS messages that you get, unless you're using an app, they will clone your phone, and they'll just be looking at all your messages, take that again to your accounts, and people don't understand that. So if you're doing SMS with multi-factor authentication, you're gonna knock that shit off. I'm just saying.
Never SMS. Never SMS.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta be
right? Like
using
that
what you know or
10
what
years
you
ago.
have.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we should have, stopped using SMS.
It's so
Yeah,
dumbfounding. It's like even banks are still using it. So many banks.
dude.
I'm like, I go proud look at my settings. I'm looking at how I can change this to a QR code or something that I have. And it's like, nope, we will send it to um your phone as a text message. I'm like, not even an email at least. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, so,
Sorry,
right,
sorry.
SMS, don't use it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. And yeah, there's so many different ways that could be, attacker can get around it. I'd say that's probably the lowest form,
Yes. Back to your
right?
question. I went all the way
Sorry,
over that. So what was your question you asked me before I went on my tangent?
I don't remember. That was minutes ago. But, oh no, so I did.
I
I remember. Yeah.
multitask, I believe.
Yeah. What forms do you know? So we have SMS.
So you have SMS, yes, that one. You have an application on your phone, and then also you have something you have, or something you know, or something you are, such as biometrics, fingerprinting, iris, or like Microsoft Authenticator app, for example. It's something that's on your phone and it's encrypted. Or then also, like I said, you have like UB keys, for example, something you have. Did I miss anything? I might have missed something.
If you did, I think that's probably the most common. I think the one which deserves a little mention, and I guess it really has to do with sort of with email, and that's Cloudflare. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
The zero
I
trust
actually
platform?
use them for certain things.
It's great. It's
They're
great and it's free.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Cloudflare zero trust. It's awesome. That should definitely, be employed with a lot of different organizations. I don't know if you mentioned this, but put the push notifications.
I was thinking that with the application, but I didn't say
Okay.
push. But yes.
Reason why I ranked them like this: SMS is lowest, push, and then I guess from there you might do sort of email, zero trust, and then I think biometric, and then a physical key in, descending order of, or I guess ascending order, whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever, right? Like going from least secure to most secure. The reason why I put push notifications, I put that lower than the application, is because of what's called a push fatigue attack.
Yeah.
And they'll just push the notifications till somebody just clicks the wrong button, and you're just like, oh, I meant to click deny. Or they're so annoyed. They're like, what is this crazy thing?
Can
Why
I
is this
try to
happening?
sign in?
Approve, whatever. Somebody, what's going on with this crazy
Yeah.
machine? And they just, click push and get that to be accepted.
Hopefully you have that set up and they do that multiple times. It blocks and locks the account and makes you call IT. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think most people do.
Yeah. Yeah. That takes a lot of sort of experience and a lot of knowledge to really think that through, right? And have those, multi-step points of failure enabled, right? I think that's so important. Really good idea bringing that up, right? That's important. How do we make this more secure? Because sometimes maybe push is the only method that they can use. So if that's the case, how do you make it the most secure?
Yeah, I mean, you're
Right?
making things the most secure. You also have to think about the workflow of the business. Like, is it going to impede on them doing their work too much? Did it take too much time for them in order to do it? Is there going to be too much training? Is it going to impede on the workflow that they're getting less done because there's too much security involved too? So you really have to kind of take the time to figure that out for your company.
Yeah.
But people are
Working in
doing too little.
cybersecurity, yeah, I don't think there's ever too much cybersecurity. But realistically, I think that there's, certain things which we do have to look into, right? With business, business workflows. It's important because if it's too difficult or too different as well, they won't want to do it. And I think these sort of things that we implement might work out best in sort of a rolled, sort of, a staggered rollout.
You're supposed
Let
to
people
do it
know.
that way. Roll it out,
Yeah.
test a few people, see how it works, and if that works good, you kinda do it slow increments. You do the entire company, everyone's either pissed off or locked out, what do you do then?
Then your IT help team is going to be tickets blowing up if everyone's locked out,
IT has
right?
been
Yeah.
disconnected, no longer in service. Please hang up and try your call again.
Right. Yeah. That's probably what would happen after a while. It would just get almost like a denial of service attack on IT, So yeah, that's real. And people need to, consider that the staggered rollout. Yeah, that's definitely a great way of getting things out there. I think though, certain things are non-negotiable, with that said, right? With workflows. But I think it's important to work together with the team that you're trying to make more secure and figure out something that will work. So multi-factor has to get implemented. Is it biometric? Is it this? Is it application? Whatever else. I think that's important to get their feedback. You want it to work. Quick note:
Yes.
AI just analyzed a whole bunch of fingerprints, and they let us know they're actually not unique. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Yeah, that's so like, biometric, we gotta be careful. Your fingerprints are not unique. Sorry, fingerprints. Yep. You're not little unique snowflakes.
And everything, and I do not exist.
Man, wow, you went down. Yeah. Does it the mushrooms before the
Oh, I took all the pill, red pill and blue pill. Let's have a
that'll
good
do it.
time today.
Yeah, man. Always. Yeah. But it's funny too, that sort of like revelation, right? That I've had those moments a couple different times. Oddly enough, one time during yoga, that meditation session at the end, that was really cool. And but because ultimately we are, right? We're all connected to the universe around us, but that's a different topic. Getting back to that, right? I think maybe zero trust through Cloudflare. There might be one of the easiest lifts that's pretty darn secure. And it's free. Might take a little help from an IT team or an MSP or Outlaw Research Labs to help you get that off the ground, right? But it's not difficult. I mean, you'd be able to get that set up in probably an afternoon for a medium sized group. Is that right?
Yeah, I've noticed for myself, and I'm talking to clients and people I've worked with, that not even zero trust, but let alone just getting them to do the MFA or the training and stuff is like a hassle. It's like such a push to that alone. Like most small and medium sized businesses don't have the capacity to even do all of that, like to set up zero trust or to understand how that works, or having SSO, any of that. They're just like, no, this is way too much for them.
That's not good. Wait, so you get no's when you bring this up that they should do it? They tell you no.
They're like, "Oh, we'll look into it. What can we do for right now? We'll get right back to that." No, this is not something that we need to worry about for ourselves. Do you have something else we can use? I really like getting the phone call or the SMS message. You can start there. I'm like, if you start there and you finish there, you're gonna have a problem. Maybe you can start there, but you have to bring that security program full 360, and you have to have a plan to help it grow into that. Because just right away there's kind of like, no, you don't see why we need to do this. I see it a lot. I have these conversations a lot. Now I'm kind of like, what am I doing with my life then?
Then you get back to the I'm everything everywhere.
I'm
Yeah.
everything but nothing. Now who am I? What am I?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah. That's a good one when you get there too. I'm everything and nothing. Because like as far as I can tell, that's the way it is. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's not exactly wrong.
Yeah, but I think it's tailoring those conversations to really help them understand is kind of key. Maybe I don't have the capacity to explain it differently to every single person, but I
How
guess
dare
that's
you?
kind of part of the journey and understanding how to have those conversations with these businesses. But they have to start somewhere. So I know you have to kind of start small and grow with it, but they don't even, a lot of them don't even see a lot of the security stuff on their roadmap. A lot of them don't even have a cybersecurity roadmap. A lot of them don't even have a business continuity plan. They don't do risk assessments. So here we are.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And, but with that said, there's also a ton of runway here, right? Because of so many people with lax security stances. Um, so that other thing about I'm glad you said that. I was going to mention it. You said something along the lines of like, maybe it's me, maybe I can't have those conversations. And I think a quote came
Nailed
to
that.
mind that's been, yeah, and the quote is whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right either way. And so I think it's important to maybe put the bomb sound in the remix with that, like, but I think and then you kind of circled back and we're like, I just need to kind of learn to have those conversations. I think that's super important because it's it's important. Multi-factor authentication, as you said, is not the end all be all, but it is important. And we have to figure out a way how to let people know that it's important, right? It's not just to make money, especially like setting up something like multi-factor authentication. It's not
Well,
a
I
huge
charge a
cost,
thousand bucks a
right?
person for that one. What are you talking about?
Yeah, cheap, $1,000 a pop plus $1,000 a month,
Yeah.
but per
Oh
person.
gosh.
But no, I mean relatively, right? Like it's not that much cost, but people need to really take that sort of seriously. As far as applications go, right? It's kind of moving up the thing there.
Yes.
What applications do you like and why?
What type of applications are we talking about in terms of what?
MFA.
So I know Duo is a pretty big one. I do use it, but I found some timing issues with it for some apps. But I used to use, I'm not going to say the name. Okay, I'll say I used to use LastPass Authenticator. Don't cancel me.
Hey
Like
man, it
Rich,
happens. Use everyone use LastPass.
they
It's not
did.
just
Woo!
you, please. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank God. Yeah, I was part of
Yep.
that crowd. But there's that one, Duo. Microsoft Authenticator for my Microsoft accounts right now. And I'm using pretty much between Duo and Microsoft Authenticator. I'm looking for something better, but you only use those because they're inexpensive or cheap to use if you have a Microsoft account. And those are like I'm trying to get at least clients on that road for now, and then kind of move them up in little increments of this, give them a little nugget, not to overwhelm them with the cost of most stuff. What did you have in mind?
So I do not I've never really tried Duo. I think I have it. Just some one or two applications needed it. I didn't really have too many problems with it. I'm not a fan of Microsoft exactly, only because I was like abused by them in the mid 90s, early 2000s with their
If
operating
you've been a
systems.
victim, please call this number. We'll get you the help that you need. We feel your
And
pain.
compensation
Yeah,
for, yeah, like, I mean,
we'll
the blue screens of
compensate
death.
you.
Man, Windows Vista, Windows Millennium, Windows 97 when it first came out before it got patched, and it was just like, I'm like, Windows, Microsoft, basically, I'm like, is trash. And, it was pretty bad for a while. They've really improved things. And I don't know where their app actually lines up as far as like ranking for, as far as security and or ease of use goes. But, I do use it. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm still like triggered by Microsoft. So I don't really recommend it to
Which
things,
ah,
right? What I usually recommend is Authy. I like that.
ooh,
Um,
I've heard of Authy.
and Google Authenticator works. I didn't like Google Authenticator
I
for a
like
long time because I didn't have a backup. And like when I sign into a new device, do I have that, there? And I think that's an important thing to mention too with with the authenticators are make sure that you have I like having multi-factor. So like for example, I have everything backed up on whatever two-factor authentication app I'm using. I have it on my phone and then I have it on another device, which we'll name nameless in case any
Well,
hackers are trying to test it.
a lot of the companies are doing this, right? They have you do the authenticator, and then they give you backup codes that you should be backing up into your password manager. That's not
Yeah.
LastPass.
So bringing that up too, right? I like using Proton Password Manager, Proton Pass.
Proton Pass, yeah, good one.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and it allows for two-factor authentication, bring it full circle, which I like, and it uses hardware authentication. That's one of the options, which is great. I use hardware, and this is probably a great time to bring this up. Hardware, I think, is the tried and true, most secure, and again, most secure, not completely secure, most secure form of multi-factor authentication. And whenever I can, I do. And that's what I like. One of the things about Proton Pass is that in order to log in, you need my key, which I'm not telling you geographically where it is, anybody, but yeah, they'll need that. And I think that's important. You have my username, you have my password, but in order to get the keys to the kingdom, you need that thing. So yeah, because you want to make sure that password manager, you want to make sure that thing's secure. Long password, definitely unique. And then also, hardware authentication to get in. The other thing which you had mentioned is unique passwords. With Proton Pass, they give you the ability to generate the unique passwords. Makes it nice and easy breezy. Save it right in there. Everything's unique. And one thing which we didn't mention, and you didn't mention either, and just kind of came to mind, is how often should we come up with new passwords?
So compliance regulations for, say, HIPAA, for example, is 90 days. It should be
90.
changed,
Ugh.
90
I go about
days.
6 months.
So
Okay.
it really, I go by that, but sometimes for me it depends because I use a Proton Pass as my backup, but I use Keeper as my main. So I have a backup for my backup because I've had some issues before.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
yes,
Yeah, of course. We all have. You learn. Yep. I remember I thought I was using Google Authenticator. I did not have it backed up anywhere. And then this didn't allow the transfer. I had it was only $500, thank God, of crypto on my phone. I thought if I did a complete backup of the phone, I did a hard reset because it was borking out. And I go into Google Authenticator, nothing's there. I was like, oh, that hurts.
this is not happening.
So yep,
This is not
it happened, and yeah, thank God it wasn't $500,000. It was just 500. But yeah. So anyway,
So I have a
that one's
story
done.
with that too. Like a couple of years ago, that made me really fine tune my security is I had an incident where my Facebook got hacked. I was like, I got hacked? The fuck? What's happening here? But because of that, I didn't practice good password etiquette. That same password was used on so many things. It got on the dark web. It locked me out of all my QR codes to authenticate everything. I had to go through all, there's about 1,300 accounts or so I had. There's a
Are you
lot
kidding
of
me?
them. Because over the years, it's accumulating different accounts. Some of them I used, some of them I didn't still. But I have to go through one by one, get back in it somehow, or reach out to support to get access. And then I realized I have to set up an alternative email, alternative access for my backup of my access. And I did that going forward because of that incident. It took me about 3 days just to go through, change everything. I saw my stuff on the dark web. I'm like, this is a hard lesson, young man.
Yeah, it is. It happens. We do it. We do stuff like that. I know my brother, who will remain nameless. No, anybody knows my brother knows him. I remember one time, he's smart, not very technically inclined, not cybersecurity focused or anything like that. And that's the other thing. People don't need to, shouldn't feel like they're not smart or whatever else when they make mistakes. And I saw him on his AOL account. This was probably 20 years ago. And he was just like clicking all these things. Like he looked like a junkie or something, or like one of those folks that are just like at one of those slot machines going like dialed in. They're like da, 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 clicking on stuff, filling out surveys because they said he had won stuff. And I'm like, no, no, no. It was my mom's computer that he was doing it on too. I'm like, no, no. We have to like wipe everything now. I'm like, what did you do? But we need to, be super careful with that. And we learn our lessons.
I was just having this conversation with someone else the other day about as entrepreneurs, a lot of times when we become entrepreneurs, it's a hard lesson that we have to learn that drives us into that. It's something that wakes us up and shakes us and realizes oh my goodness, I have to do this better. I have to pay attention and go forward. It's crazy. We have to have these events in our lives that transform and elevate us into who we have to become.
That's important too. And a great kind of segue to close this out too, right? It's there's another quote. You need to let go of who you are in order to, become what you were meant to be, right? Let that old stuff go. Just let it go. No big deal. Just let it go. Learn something new, change, grow. That's the path forward in life. I'm a little hard headed sometimes, but once I get stung once or twice, maybe three times, I'll change.
That's so powerful. Tell you a quick
Yeah, man.
story with that. Probably told this a million
Yeah.
times already. That I was at that part of my life, I was trying to figure it out. I couldn't figure out to let go. I couldn't figure out to change stuff. I kept trying to. I was getting so frustrated that I had to end up fucking overdosing and dying and coming back and realizing I can do it now. I know I have to change. But it took that death experience, that hard fucking lesson that I had to go through for me to be like, okay, I fucking get it now. Okay. I understand. All right, man. But I was just
That's fucking
struggling
crazy.
so much. It was such a
Yeah.
struggle. Yeah.
So you got to hit rock bottom,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I think now what I try to do too is find a new rock bottom so it's not that low.
Yeah. On that.
And this is like the line in the sand that I will not go below. And just, definitely off topic, but one of the things that I'll do is, well, maybe on topic, like multi factor authentication. I will not go below that, but like exercise. I need to sneak in a certain amount of exercise or my body just starts feeling its age. But as long as I keep on it, and that number's usually somewhere about 20 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week of some type of cross training, definitely some resistance, definitely some kind of either high intensity or cardio. And kind of that's the bar that I cannot go below, because I like to eat. So, you know,
Especially in America, the food tastes so goddamn good. And you're
yeah, it
by the
does.
time you eat it, you're like, I gotta go back to the gym.
Yeah. That's right. But you keep that bar and make sure you go to the gym. Don't be like, all is lost. I just had a sleeve of Oreos. Oh no. Yeah.
I hope people can put this together, what we're talking about, and have it make sense. That going below a certain expectancy of understanding your life is you should not do that. Right? If it's multi-factor authentication, if it's with your health, you should set the bar right here and never go below that and learn how to go higher. Having conversations, talking to people like this, watching these YouTube videos of these insane people talking about maddening things,
Yet
mumbling.
intelligent.
Yeah, highly intelligent, totally.
Absolutely.
But people sometimes don't understand how to put those things together. I do this one thing in my life, then I should understand how to put this to other things in my life. But people don't sometimes make those connections from health to healing to multi-factor authentication to save your business. They're all kind of connected. But it's just where are you setting the bar for yourself, your life, your business? Where is your bar? Most people's bars are so low, they're just doing 1 to 2% more. You're above the 99%. That's all I got.
That's that's great advice. And just to kind of hit that home too is set the bar low. Set the bar low. Just a little up and make sure you succeed. That feels good. We're simple creatures. We're simple creatures. Yeah, reward yourself. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Tell your staff, great job, even though they just did whatever else thing, how meaningless you might think it is, right? It's important. Give them positive reinforcement. To change our way of being is difficult. And if they've spent their entire lives not using multi factor authentication, just getting them to use it a little bit, give them a little pat on the back. I think it's important.
Yeah, it's a behavior change. All these things we talked about today, from phishing to MFA to our health to policies, all of this, all about behavior change and having the right leader in your company to help facilitate that. Understand that he may need to reach out to another person or company to help him. That's a behavior change too. Having these conversations to help them get from A to B smoother. It's very important.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yes. Well, John, it comes a time where we gotta say, good morning, Vietnam. Just kidding. Wrong show. My bad. It's
It's all
been
good.
good having you on here again.
Yeah,
Been
man.
good talking
Absolutely.
with you. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? Or should we just say fuck it and get the hell out of here?
I say fuck it. Get your time back. Enjoy today's Saturday. Hopefully you're spending some time with your family, and definitely don't be afraid to take a look at our website. We have a couple blogs. One of them's on multi-factor authentication. Again, outlawresearchlabs.com.
Hell yeah, brother.
Definitely. Justin, it's been a pleasure, man. I'll
You
talk to you
too.
soon.
Talking to you,
Later
John.
on, man.
Bye.